welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. Talking about a movie that came out technically a few months ago, in so much as it premiered at Sundance. It came out, Amazon made two acquisitions at Sundance, two key acquisitions. They picked up, because they came in with Lucy and Desi, which is Amy Poehler's documentary about Ricky Ricardo. Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. Ricky Ricardo was his character that he played on what was that show? I Love Lucy. But it was about them. So they do this show, this movie. I think it's entirely or mostly archival footage. I have not yet watched it. But it is, there. So, when you... What the fuck is going on? No, that was weird. So what we have here is this, this great, what's going on for here? They picked up two movies that are, how shall we put this? Guaranteed to get white people angry based on concept, if not the actual what the movie's about. Because Emergency it's based on a short film from a few years ago, about, these two black kids who find a passed out white girl in their house, and they're afraid to call the police because the police, are going to, they're afraid they're going to get shot by the police and they're going to get blamed for this, white girl being unconscious in their house. And, it's a valid fear, considering this, this random white girl shows up in their house without explanation, passed out drunk. It's a valid concern that, they're going to be blamed for said passed out white girl who's, hanging out in their house without, and no one knows how she got there. And the thing is, it's like none of them actually know how she got there. She just kind of shows up. And I think that the thing is, if someone watched the movie, if you go on Amazon and you read the comments, you would think that this movie was like, a terrible amount of propaganda. And it's really not. And there's certainly an argument to be made that, they definitely did the wrong thing in the movie. Because, that's kind of like, the entire movie happens because they don't just, call the police or anything, but granted, they also have very real fears about calling the police. So it's one of those weird situations where it's like, it doesn't portray what they did as the right decision. It doesn't portray, it portrays that, the outcome they anticipated as a result of calling the police was a grounded fear, but it doesn't portray them, driving her to the hospital and going through all of the antics that go along with it as the right decision. And I have a few problems with the movie. It is very obviously a short film concept that was expanded out to be a feature, in so much as there are things there that very obviously just pad the runtime. There is, the sequence where it's like they go to these other people's house and, so we're just gonna detour here for a little bit. We have this girl who's, drunk, and we're gonna get a new car, so we're gonna stop here. What else was there? There was, and then, early on they're padding out the runtime, and then everyone has subplots, and subplots that feel like they're ancillary to the story, not intertwined in the story. Which, what are you gonna do? The movie's not bad, though. But it is being bombarded with 1-star reviews. And, it's one of those things, you go and you look, and you're like, oh, it's anti-white propaganda, and, it's, they're trying to say that white people are evil. It's another one of these white people are evil movies. And it's like, it's really not, though. Like, if you watch this movie and that's the message you get from it, I don't know if it's people are watching movies and intentionally getting the wrong message and then being obtuse about it, or if it's people who just genuinely do not know how to read a movie when they're watching it, which it could be either way. Like, so it's like, and the thing is, too, it's like, here's the thing. Like, these movies, this was a Sundance Select that went to Amazon Prime. It's not a heavily, promoted movie. It's not like this is a theatrical release that got a ton of attention and had a huge ad spend and is going to be an Oscar contender, because I feel like Amazon's not going to invest the money in this to make it an Oscar contender. No fault in the movie. I mean, the movie is fine. It's just not going to be in that contention by the end of the year. I think that, if you're looking at this and you're watching this movie and, if you don't like movies like this, they are so few and far between. Even if you watch the first 5 minutes where they have this discussion about this white professor who keeps using the N-word, to see if it makes people uncomfortable, it's even if you're going to look at that and you're going to, and the thing is too, I haven't even gotten into this. I think that the kid who plays Sean, the lead in the movie, RJ Ryder or something like that, he was also in the Power Rangers movie. He played Billy, the Blue Ranger, who definitely had, some form of autism, if I remember correctly. Or at least that's how they played him. And this kid's a fantastic actor. I don't think he gets nearly enough credit for what he does, but he's really a fantastic actor. And he deserves all the props in the world, not just for, this, but also for, for when he was in Power Rangers. He's done some good work, and he's versatile, too. I think that's the biggest thing about him. He's versatile, and he's really good. And the thing is, too, it's when you watch, Power Rangers, and you're like, oh, well, this kid could get more roles, and that was 2017, 5 years ago, and this is the first time I've seen him since. And I see a lot of fucking movies. And I'm like, well, why is that the case? I remember when that movie came out, people were singing this kid's praises and being like, holy shit, this kid's awesome, look at how great he is. And it's like, well, why haven't I seen him since? Why haven't I seen him show up in something else? It doesn't necessarily be Power Rangers, but it just has to, it could just be anything. I haven't seen him in too much else, and that feels like an oversight, and I'm not entirely sure why it is that he's not doing that, or why they're not giving him more roles. What else was there? And I think that's another thing. It's you can look at that and be like, well, that's another example of how we know these movies haven't been happening as often as they should. And it's it's one of the things where if it bothers you so much and you get so incensed about the political leanings of a movie, you have to go out of your way to find this movie. Because it's not even a Map of the Tiny Little Things, which is another Amazon movie, that while it didn't get a huge ad spend, it had a lot of attention on Amazon's website and on the Amazon Prime app. Not a terrible movie. It was a cute little Groundhog Day time loop type thing. And it was a cool idea. I really liked that, that movie. It was cute. And it's that movie got a lot more promotion than Emergency ever did. To look at Emergency and be like, oh, well, this is definitely something that they're trying to shove down our throats, it's well, no, you have to actively seek this out. Maybe you were just seeking it out because it was, because you saw it was at Sundance. Maybe that is the case. Maybe you saw, oh, this is going to be this is a Sundance Select, maybe it'll be good. But I don't think it was even listed on the website that it had its premiere at Sundance. And the thing is, you should know, if a movie makes its premiere at Sundance, it is not Hollywood shoving its thoughts down your throat. Because that's not what Sundance is. Sundance is largely independent movies. Sure, Amy Poehler directed a documentary about, Lucy and Desi, but it doesn't mean that the movie, it didn't, and I think Amazon picked it up, but it wasn't produced by a studio. It was just, Amy Poehler did that. It's one of those things where it's you look at you have to go out of your way to look for these. And I'm thinking, because this also happened with, I believe the movie was called Master, a month or two ago. I haven't watched it yet, but it's a horror movie set at a prestigious university that's, probably somewhat based on Harvard or Yale or Princeton or some other Ivy League school. And it is, they have to deal with the racism there, and it's a ghost story in this prestigious university, and it's race plays a part in it. And I didn't find out that the movie had hit streaming until I went into my Amazon Prime app by happenstance. It's let's see what's new on this, and I still have Amazon Prime, might as well make use of it. So I go onto the app and I see that it's there, and it's got a flood of 1-star reviews. And again, it's all, woke propaganda and anti-white, messaging. And you have to go out of your way to find these movies. Unless there's, some kind of, newsletter that all of these people get. So it's and here are all of the movies that we want you to go out and review bomb. I think Amazon really needs to take steps to try and, figure out what's going on here. Because Amazon, first of all, I'm curious as to how much of a movie you have to watch before you can review it. That would be the first thing that I question. How much of a movie do you have to watch before you can review it for it to count as a verified viewer? Because I would venture a guess that it is probably not the whole movie. And the other thing is, it's if it is the whole movie, it's I can guarantee these motherfuckers aren't sitting down and watching the whole thing. They're definitely just turning it on and walking out of the room, or turning it on their phone and leaving their phone running for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and being alright, well, this will count for me watching it so I can review it. At which point, at some point in this, you have to question, as a rational person, if you are a rational person, and I think if you're doing this, you're not a rational person, but at some point during this, you're I am just wasting data and wasting time putting this movie on for an hour and a half to 2 hours just to give it a 1-star review. Just to give it a 1-star review. At some point in that time, while that's happening, you have to be well, wait a minute, what's the fucking point of doing this? Why am I doing this? Is this gonna, because the thing is, it's not going to change the mind of someone who's already entrenched, and if someone's going to watch the movie and knows what the movie's about, they're not going to see the 1-star review that says it's anti-white propaganda and be whoa, didn't think this is what this is going to be about, and then not watch it. So it's not you're going to change anyone's mind. And Amazon doesn't do a good enough time of keeping the, it's not going to do anything. All it does is it creates a controversy. It astroturfs a controversy, so that way other right-wing news sources, because here's the thing, if a movie like this comes out, and you go out, and I know I'm preaching to other people who tend to align with me politically, but here's the thing about what's going on here, and it's somewhat more, I don't want to say, it is nefarious, but the reasoning for it is not, it generates revenue, is what it is. Because here's the thing. A website like the Daily Caller, or worse, the Daily Stormer, or any number of other, ultra right-wing sites, or maybe Breitbart or something like that, will come out and say, this movie's coming out, we should go out and give it 1-star reviews. And they won't say it outright in an article on the site. they'll do it in like an opinion piece, or they'll have or it'll just be an opinion piece. It's like, oh, this movie came out and it features more propaganda that teaches, people that they should hate white people, and what is this about, and why are we doing this, and why is this a thing, and yada yada yada. And it's like, that'll happen, and people will go out and review bomb it. And then what'll happen is, especially in the case of the Daily Caller, which is subscription based, they're like Patreon based. They're not on Patreon, but they have their own kind of Patreon-like service that is their own kind of thing. Like, they will then be able to report a factual story that says that this movie at Sundance, which is supposed to be the beacon of independent film, has a 3-star rating, or lower on, from verified reviewers on Amazon. And why is that? Because it's anti-white. So they can be like, see, more people don't like it. And it's like, well, no, because the majority of people who watch a movie or read a book, I can attest to this as someone who sells on Amazon, and all of my books are available on Amazon through Kindle Direct. I can attest to the fact that very few people give a fuck to actually give it a 5-star rating or give it any rating whatsoever. It is infrequent that you get someone who's like, I care enough about this thing to give it a rating so someone else can figure it out. Just look at like the top rated items, how many items actually have ratings, and it's like you really only get it if someone is really, really, really mad or really, really, really happy, and unless you get that, no one's going to give you a rating. And it's just one of those things where you just, all right, we'll deal. So looking at, all of that, like, for all of these people to go and watch this movie, it's like, well, no, it's you're not doing anything. And all you're doing when you give it the 1-star rating is you're not detracting someone who heard it was at Sundance and knows the movie's about from watching the movie. So you're not really hurting it. All you're doing is artificially inflating the number of viewers so that way Amazon goes and buys more movies like this in the future. So you're creating the situation that does it. Because as much as, like, the site that's getting you to go there because their ad revenue is dependent on you being angry, is directing you there, they're making money on you doing that. But then Amazon's making money on you because you're watching the movie. So you're playing yourself on both sides of this scenario. Like, it's all you're doing is making the problem that doesn't exist, worse, quote unquote. So we'll wrap up there for today. And if you haven't seen Emergency yet, go and check it out. It's not bad. It's only like an hour 40, so it's not a huge time commitment. And it is definitely worth your time to watch. So until next time, have a great rest of your week.